"Get out of there," the voice rasped, echoing strangely through the low-gravity corridor. It wasn't human. It resonated, a low hum beneath the sound like a struck bell that refused to die. Kalen froze, his hand inches from the access panel override. Dust motes hung suspended in the faint, salvaged light filtering through a cracked viewport down the hall. The derelict ship, a forgotten carcass drifting in the void, was supposed to be empty. Just him and the ghosts of whatever crew had died here millennia ago. "Who's there?" he called back, his own voice a dry, rough sound in the silence. He kept his movements slow, non-threatening, but his senses were screaming. The hum in the air intensified, not just auditory, but something he felt vibrating against his teeth, along his bones. It felt alert. A figure drifted from the shadows at the far end of the corridor. It wasn't human, not even close, but its form held a strange grace in zero-G. It was tall, slender, and its skin, if it could be called that, was a deep shifting indigo. But it wasn't just color. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed beneath the surface, glowing lines that chased across limbs, flowed down its back, settling into intricate, shimmering symbols on its torso and face. Right now, those lines were sharp, agitated spirals of vivid emerald and crimson. Warning. He'd seen Zethar before or heard tales. Rare, dangerous, often found near ancient ruins or energy sources too volatile for organics. This one was different, more intricate, more intensely there. The air around her seemed to thicken, carrying a scent he couldn't name, something like ozone and blooming night flowers and ancient rock. "You trespass," the figure said, and the resonant hum was stronger now, vibrating in his chest. She didn't move closer but drifted slightly, positioning herself between him and the panel. Her eyes large, multifaceted like polished gems catching distant starlight, focused on him with an unnerving intensity. They weren't just seeing. They felt like they were scanning him, cataloging every beat of his heart, every tremor in his hand. "Trespassing on what?" "This is a dead ship," Kalen said, trying to keep his voice level. He slowly lowered his hand from the panel. "Just scavenging. Power core's offline, isn't it? Just after scrap." The glowing patterns on her form shifted again, the crimson fading, the emerald deepening into a rich jade. A new pattern bloomed near her collarbone, a complex knot of silver light. He had no idea what any of it meant. "This ship is not dead, it sleeps, and its sleep is guarded." Her voice, the hum, it had a strange quality, like multiple tones layered on top of each other, and it felt like it was speaking directly to his nervous system, bypassing his ears slightly. Disorienting. "Guarded by you," Kalen gestured vaguely. "One Zethar seems a bit much for a pile of rust." He risked a small, lopsided smile. It usually disarmed humans. Didn't seem to have any effect on her. The jade lines pulsed faster. "Your designation is?" she asked, drifting another foot closer. The air grew warmer, the strange scent more potent. He could see the patterns on her face more clearly now. They outlined sharp cheekbones, flowed around the curve of a chin. There was no hair, no skin in the human sense, just that deep, shifting indigo base, pulsing with light and emotion he couldn't read. "Kalen, just Kalen." "Kalen," she repeated, the name a soft resonance in the hum. "You are unprotected." She didn't ask if he was alone, she stated it, and she was right. His beat-up scout ship was docked outside, his only companion the automated nav computer. "And you seek to violate a sacred place." "Sacred?" Kalen scoffed gently. "Lady, this place is held together by prayer and space rust. If it's sacred, someone should probably give it a wash." The jade patterns flared again, joined now by sharp streaks of gold near her hands, which ended in long, multi-jointed digits. One hand lifted, reaching out slightly. He felt a faint pressure against his chest, not physical, but internal, like someone pushing on his diaphragm. He instinctively braced himself. "Your irreverence is unexpected," she stated, lowering her hand. The pressure eased. "But your energy signature is clean, no residue of the slavers or the syndicate." The emerald line softened, spreading across her shoulders like liquid light. A new pattern, slow and steady, bloomed over her heart, a soft golden nebula. Curiosity, assessment. Glad my aura passed the test, Kalen muttered, pushing off the wall he'd been leaning against. He drifted closer slowly. He was a scavenger, a rogue. He knew how to gauge threats. This was unknown. The hum was still there, the scent, the visual spectacle of her. It wasn't just sight, it was a whole-body sensory experience being near her. So if this ship is sacred, why are you out here alone? She didn't answer immediately. The gold nebula pattern pulsed gently. Her multifaceted eyes seemed to look past him for a moment, into the empty corridor, into the void outside. Guardianship is often solitary. Her voice held a hint of weariness beneath the resonance. My designation is Lyria. Lyria, he repeated. It felt strange on his tongue. The ship shifted slightly around them, groaning like an ancient beast settling deeper into its sleep. The sound seemed to resonate with her hum. He felt a strange pull towards her, not just curiosity about the alien, but something deeper, a magnetic drag in the low-G environment. It was unsettling. He'd been alone for a long time, preferred it that way. Now, standing near this creature of light and resonance, the solitude felt suddenly vast and empty. You are injured, Lyria stated, her gaze fixing on his side. He'd taken a blaster graze a few days ago, escaping a sticky situation. It was bandaged, not serious. The energy signature is disrupted. Kalen glanced down. Just a scrape, I'm fine. You are not fine, she corrected, drifting closer without apparent effort. The slow, golden pattern on her chest intensified, seeming to glow warmer. The air grew even warmer, the scent sweeter, sharper. He could feel the vibrations from her presence more strongly now, a soothing frequency against his racing pulse. The disruption indicates cellular distress. Ignoring it is illogical. Before he could protest, she reached out again, her multi-jointed fingers hovering an inch from his bandaged side. The golden light flared, spreading from her hand like spilled paint onto the indigo of her arm, flowing towards his injury. He felt a warmth bloom beneath his ribs, a tingling sensation spreading outward from the bandage. It wasn't painful, but profoundly weird. He watched the light patterns on her arm shift, complex algorithms of gold and silver weaving together, pulsing in time with that persistent hum. "What are you doing?" he asked, keeping his voice low, trying to hide the tremor that wasn't from fear this time, but from the sheer strangeness of the sensation. The warmth was spreading not just on his skin, but deeper into the muscle. It felt like knitting, like tiny glowing threads were stitching him back together from the inside out. Lyria's gaze remained fixed on his side, her multifaceted eyes seeming to pierce through the bandage, through his flesh. The air around her hummed louder, the scent intensifying to a dizzying degree. He felt a sudden lightness, a fatting of the dull ache that had been a constant companion since the injury. "Facilitating regeneration," she said, her voice softer now, the layers of tone more distinct, more melodic. The golden light on her arm pulsed slowly, rhythmically, mirroring the fatting throb in his side. "Your species' healing is inefficient. Mine can encourage it." He could feel the bandage loosening, the wound beneath closing. It was impossible. Standard medkits took hours, days for something like that. This felt like seconds. He watched, dumbfounded, as the light patterns on Lyria's arm began to recede, flowing back into her hand, then up her arm until only the slow, golden nebula remained on her chest. She lowered her hand. "It should be closed now," she stated. Hesitantly, Kalen peeled back the edge of the bandage. Beneath it, where there had been an angry red graze weeping plasma-thick blood, there was now smooth pink skin, not even a scar. He stared at it, then at her. "How?" "Symbiotic energy transference," she explained simply. "My kind possess a deep resonance with biological processes. It can be directed." The jade returned to her patterns, mixing with the gold. Now they seemed to ripple like calm water. Acceptance. Inquiry. You just healed me," Kalen said, still slightly stunned. He looked at her, really looked at her, no longer just seeing a strange alien threat, but something else. The way the light patterns moved with her silent emotions, the complex resonance of her voice, the strange, captivating scent. He felt exposed in a way he hadn't anticipated. He had come here to take something. Instead, she had given him something extraordinary. "You were injured," Lyria said, stating it again, as if it were the most obvious reason in the universe. "Leaving you in a state of disrepair would be illogical and against the principles. Principles of resonance, of connection, of guardianship." Her gaze lingered on him, the multifaceted eyes seeming to soften slightly, catching the distant light in a warmer spectrum. "You are not of the slavers, Kaelin. You are merely lost. And this ship, it recognizes you were not meant to harm it, only to scavenge." "How do you know that?" She tilted her head slightly. A delicate silver pattern bloomed near her temple, swirling gently like mist. "The resonance does not lie." He was still reeling from the healing, from the sheer alienness and unexpected grace of the act. "Right, the resonance." He ran a hand over the impossibly smooth skin on his side. "Look, Lyria, I appreciate the medical attention, seriously, but I still need to get into that panel. There's a power conduit junction I need to strip for my ship." The jade patterns flared sharp again. The golden nebula on her chest flickered. "You seek to take from the sleeping vessel after it has shown you kindness." "It didn't show me kindness, you did," Kaelin corrected, trying to keep the edge out of his voice. He didn't want to push her, not when he didn't understand her, but he also couldn't leave empty-handed. His ship needed those parts. He needed the credits they'd bring. "Look, I just need a few pieces. Nothing that'll wake it up, whatever you mean by that." "This ship is not a collection of pieces to be stripped," Lyria said, and her voice was colder now, the underlying hum taking on a sharper, dissonant edge that grated against his nerves. The emerald and crimson patterns returned to her form, vivid and warning. "It is a living entity, a cradle. What you call scrap is its vital essence, its memories, its potential." "Living entity, its metal and circuits." "Ignorance does not negate truth," she stated, drifting slowly but purposefully between him and the panel again. Her posture was defensive, her multi-jointed hands held slightly away from her body, fingers splayed. The warning patterns intensified, throbbing with a palpable energy that made the fine hairs on his arms prickle. The scent around her changed again, becoming sharp, almost acrid like burning leaves. He felt a sudden shift in the low gravity, a tremor running through the ship. It wasn't him or Lyria moving. The structure itself was reacting. The faint lights in the corridor flickered. Dust rained down from the ceiling panels. The hum in the air deepened, becoming a resonant growl. "See," Lyria's voice was tight, higher-pitched. The glowing patterns on her body flared violently, a chaotic riot of emerald, crimson, and sharp, electric blue. "You disturb its rest. You must leave, Kaelin, now, before it wakes fully." "Wakes?" Kaelin felt a knot of fear tighten in his stomach. He'd encountered active alien tech before, and it was rarely friendly. He glanced at the access panel. It was no longer just metal. It felt like a boundary into something vast and potentially hostile. He looked back at Lyria, a creature of light and sound and scent, suddenly realizing she wasn't just a guardian. She was part of this place, intrinsically linked to its strange, ancient power. He could see the tremor running through her form now, the light patterns shaking, reflecting the ship's own disturbance. This wasn't just her protecting a place. This was the place reacting through her, amplifying her warning. "Fine," he said quickly, backing away slowly. "Okay, I'm going. I didn't realize my mistake." He held up his hands in a gesture of surrender, though he doubted she understood human body language in the way he meant it. His instinct was screaming at him to get out, to get back to his ship before this place fully came alive. But something else held him back. A reluctant fascination with Lyria, with the raw, untamed power that flowed through her, with the strange, beautiful danger she represented. And a flicker of something else too, something softer and entirely unexpected. A connection forged in the impossible instant of his impossible healing. He wanted to run, but he also wanted to know what else she could do, what other secrets this place held, what other patterns pulsed beneath her indigo skin. He drifted back down the corridor, keeping his eyes on her. The chaotic patterns on her form began to settle slightly as he retreated, the sharp blue fading, the crimson and emerald dimming to a low, anxious glow. The resonant growl of the ship subsided back into a low hum. "Go," Lyria urged, her voice still strained. "Go now, and do not return seeking plunder." "Right, no plundering." Kalen reached the end of the corridor, the air here cooler, the strange scent fainter. He paused, hovering near the entrance to the next section of the ship, a maze of disconnected pipes and dark alcoves. He glanced back at Lyria. She remained rooted to her spot, a sentinel of shimmering light against the dim backdrop, her multifaceted eyes still fixed on him. The golden nebula on her chest was now barely visible, overwhelmed by the jade. The message was clear. The moment of connection was over. The Guardian was back on duty. But the feeling of that warmth on his side, the impossible healing and the sheer, raw presence of her lingered, vibrating in his memory. He had come seeking parts and found something else entirely. Something that felt more valuable and infinitely more dangerous than any power conduit. He needed to leave, but the urge to turn back, to ask her more, to understand the impossible thing she had done, was almost overwhelming. He fought it down. Now was not the time. But he knew, with a certainty that settled cold and heavy in his gut, that he would be back. He had to be. He pushed off the wall and drifted away, deeper into the ship, moving towards the airlock he'd used to board. The darkness swallowed him. He could still feel the faint hum of Lyria's presence even when she was out of sight, a lingering vibration in the dead air. It was a phantom limb, a sensation that wasn't there but felt real. As he navigated the silent corridors, his mind replayed the image of her glowing form, the rapid, beautiful shifts of her patterns, the disconcerting intimacy of her touch as she healed him. He'd met aliens before, traded with them, fought them, scavenged their discards. But he'd never met one like Lyria, one who felt less like a being and more like a force of nature, ancient and complex, embodied in shimmering light and sound. He reached the airlock, cycled through, and found himself back in the silent vacuum, a small, insignificant human clinging to the hull of a gigantic, sleeping godship. His own scout ship looked pathetically small next to it. He climbed aboard, settling into the pilot's chair. The familiar controls felt alien after the encounter. He checked his side again. Smooth, perfect. As if the injury had never been, Lyria's gift felt like a brand, a silent claim. It both unnerved and intrigued him. He started the ship's engines, the familiar whine a comforting contrast to the silent hum of the derelict behind him. He lifted off, drifting away from the massive hulk. He didn't look back, but he felt her presence fade slowly, like a tide receding. He was gone, but he carried the indelible mark of her touch, and the question of why she had chosen to heal a trespasser. He spent the next few days in the nearby asteroid field, making minor repairs to his ship, selling off the few pieces of non-sacred, universally accepted scrap he had managed to grab from the outer sections of the derelict. The credits were meager. Not enough to buy the power conduit junction he needed. The need was still there, gnawing at him. But it wasn't just the need for the part anymore. It was the need to understand. The derelict, the sleeping vessel, as Lyria called it, pulled at him. And she pulled at him too, a strange, non-physical gravitational force. He tried to shake it off, told himself it was just the lingering effects of her weird, healing energy or the novelty of the encounter. But the thought of her, the shifting lights of her moods, the resonant hum of her voice, wouldn't leave his mind. He found himself tracing the smooth skin on his side, remembering the warmth, the impossible speed of the healing. He knew it was stupid, dangerous. Lyria had warned him off. The ship itself had warned him off, but he needed the parts, and he needed to see her again, not for the parts, not entirely. He wanted to see the patterns on her again, to hear the hum, to experience that strange, charged atmosphere around her. He felt a pull towards her, a resonance that mirrored the one she had described. He tried to rationalize it. Maybe her healing had created some kind of biological link, a dependency. He didn't know. All he knew was that the silent vacuum and the cold metal of his ship felt empty now in a way they hadn't before. He plotted a course back to the derelict. He approached cautiously this time, sending out passive scans, listening for any sign of the slavers or the syndicate she'd mentioned. The void was silent. The derelict drifted just as he'd left it, a silent monument to a forgotten era. He eased his ship into the same airlock he'd used before. The moment he cycled through, the air felt different. The hum was back, faint but present. And the strange, complex scent of ozone and night flowers. An ancient rock filled the small chamber. He stepped out into the corridor, his hand on the blaster at his hip more out of habit than genuine expectation of violence. The faint, filtered light was exactly as he'd left it. Dust motes still hung suspended. And there at the far end of the corridor, Lyria waited. She hadn't moved from her guardian's post. The patterns on her body were a soft, pools in gold and silver now, slow and steady. Waiting, calm. "You returned," she stated, her voice a soft resonance devoid of the sharp warning from before. The hum was gentle, inviting. "I needed to," Kalen admitted, stepping fully into the corridor. He felt immediately drawn towards her, the non-physical drag stronger this time. "I couldn't get the parts I needed anywhere else. And, she prompted, her multifaceted eyes fixed on him. A delicate, intricate pattern of fine silver lines bloomed near her mouth, tracing the contours of her face. It wasn't quite a smile, but it felt like one. "And I needed to see you again," he finished, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. He felt a flush of heat rise on his neck. He hadn't intended to say that. It sounded stupid, vulnerable. The golden patterns on her body brightened considerably, spreading across her chest and shoulders like sunlight. The silver lines on her face deepened. The air grew warmer again, the scent sweeter, richer. The hum around her intensified, becoming a beautiful, resonant chord that made his teeth ache with pleasure. "Your honesty is unexpected," Lyria said, and this time the layers in her voice were clearer, more distinct, creating a harmonious sound that soothed the rough edges of his own voice. "The resonance recognizes truth." "Right, the resonance." He shuffled awkwardly in the low-G look about the parts. "Is there any way? I really need that junction. My ship is practically held together with duct tape and prayers to the machine spirit." The golden patterns rippled, flowing down her arms. She drifted closer, stopping a few feet away. He could see the delicate jointing in her fingers more clearly now. The scent was intoxicating, complex. He felt a strange urge to reach out and touch the shimmering light patterns on her form, to see if they felt as warm and vibrant as they looked. "You still seek to take," she observed, her voice calm, but the gold patterns paused, momentarily static. "It's not taking if you give it to me," he offered, hoping it wasn't a cultural faux pas. Lyria tilted her head again. The silver pattern on her face shifted, becoming something more fluid like mercury flowing. "Giving requires reciprocal resonance, a transfer of energy, not just material. Reciprocal resonance. A balance, a shared flow. The ship requires a certain maintenance of its energy field. Disrupting it without contributing to it is detrimental." She gestured with a hand towards the access panel he tried to breach before. The humming from within that section of the ship intensified. "That junction is a focal point of the ship's somatic energy flow." "Somatic energy, like its life force." "A simplistic but not entirely inaccurate analogy," she confirmed. The golden patterns resumed their slow flow. "If you take from it, you must contribute back to it, or its delicate balance is disrupted. This is the principle of balance." "And how exactly do I contribute somatic energy?" Kalen asked, genuinely baffled. He was a human. He didn't have glowing light patterns or resonant hums. He had caffeine addiction and structural repair skills. Lyria drifted closer still, until she was less than an arm's length away. The air between them crackled with a soft, almost imperceptible energy. He could see the intricate detail of her multifaceted eyes, the way they seemed to hold tiny galaxies within them. The complex scent was overwhelming now, pulling him under like a tide. He felt a warmth radiating from her, a deep, steady heat that seeped into his own skin. Her patterns were a riot of gold and silver now, swirling and intertwining like two rivers meeting. "Your species possesses a raw, potent energy," she said, her voice a low, intimate hum that vibrated directly into his chest. "It is chaotic, undisciplined, often destructive, but it is strong. It can be channeled. Channeled into a power junction. Into the ship's somatic field," she corrected softly. Her multi-jointed fingers lifted, hovering just above his arm. He felt the same strange pressure he'd felt before, but gentler, more deliberate. It felt like a question, a silent invitation. "How?" he whispered, his voice suddenly hoarse. The air felt thick, charged with anticipation. Her closeness was intoxicating, terrifying. He was a human man used to the predictable physics of the universe. She was something else entirely, something that defied his understanding, a creature of pure, resonant energy and light. And she was asking him to somehow connect with it, with her. Her hand moved slightly, fingers brushing lightly against the fabric of his sleeve. A jolt went through him like a static shock, but it resonated deep within his bones, not just on his skin. The golden patterns on her arm flared, reaching out towards him like tendrils of light. "Through connection," Lyria said, her voice dropping to a near-silent hum. "Through resonance. Through you." He stared at her, his breath catching in his throat. The intensity in her eyes, the pulsing, swirling light patterns on her form, the overwhelming scent and hum, it was too much, yet not enough. He felt like he was standing on the edge of a precipice, looking down into something profound and beautiful and terrifying. She wasn't just offering him a way to get the parts he needed. She was offering him something else entirely. Something that involved him, his own chaotic human energy, her ancient, controlled power, and the deep, sleeping consciousness of the ship itself. It felt like an offer of intimacy, of a merging of energies and beings on a level he couldn't comprehend. But despite the fear, the pull was irresistible. He found himself nodding, a slow, hesitant movement in the low G. "Okay," he managed, the word barely audible. "Okay, how do we connect?" The golden light on Lyria's form surged, encompassing her completely in a warm, brilliant glow. The silver patterns dissolved into the gold, leaving only pure, radiant light. The hum around her deepened, resonating not just in his chest but through the entire corridor, through the ship, through the very fabric of space around them. It felt like the ship was listening, or perhaps anticipating. Lyria reached out, her hand closing gently around his arm. Her touch was warm, smooth, and the light pulsed against his skin. It didn't feel like solid flesh. It felt like holding warm water that glowed from within. "Come," she said, her voice a pure harmonic chord that vibrated deep within his soul. "The principle of connection requires proximity and vulnerability." She began to drift slowly, pulling him gently along behind her. He offered no resistance, mesmerized, drawn by the impossible light, the intoxicating scent, the profound hum. She led him past the access panel he'd coveted, deeper into the ship. The corridors grew darker, the salvaged light giving way to the faint, natural luminescence that seemed to emanate from the ship's walls themselves, a soft, internal glow that pulsed with the same rhythm as Lyria's hum. They passed chambers filled with strange, dormant technology, crystalline structures that pulsed with dim light, massive, silent engines that looked nothing like human propulsion systems. "Where are we going?" Kalen asked, his voice hushed. The sense of sacredness she had spoken of earlier was palpable here. It wasn't just a dead ship. It felt alive, ancient, vast. "To the heart," Lyria replied simply. "To the core nexus, where the ship's somatic energy is most concentrated, where the resonance is strongest." They arrived in a vast, spherical chamber. There were no walls, just a curving, glowing space that seemed to stretch into infinity. In the center, a massive crystalline structure pulsed with a soft, internal light, radiating warmth and energy. This must be it. The heart. The air here was dense with the strange scent, the hum overwhelming, a symphony of resonant frequencies that vibrated through his very being. Lyria released his arm and drifted towards the central crystal. As she approached it, the light patterns on her form intensified, mingling with the glow of the crystal itself. It was like two sources of light merging into one. The connection requires openness, Lyria said, turning to face him. She was now bathed in the intense light of the crystal, her indigo form a darker silhouette against the brilliance. The gold patterns on her were so bright they were almost white. You must allow the resonance to flow through you, to merge your energy with mine, with the ship's. Allow it, Kalen felt a prickle of fear again. He had no idea what that meant, how to do it, or what the consequences might be. How do I do that? Release your resistance, she instructed, her voice resonating with the crystal's hum. Do not fight the flow, embrace it, feel the connection. She lifted her multi-jointed hands, palms facing him. The golden light on her hands flared, intensifying. He felt a powerful pull, drawing him towards her, towards the crystal. He closed his eyes, took a shaky breath, and tried to do as she said. He focused on the feeling of the hum, the warmth, the scent. He imagined himself open, a conduit. He felt something shift within him, a barrier lowering. And then it hit. It felt like every nerve ending in his body suddenly came alive. Not painfully, but intensely. A river of energy, warm and vibrant, flowed from Lyria's hands, through his body into the crystal and back. It wasn't just energy, it was sensation, emotion, knowledge. He felt the vastness of the ship, its ancient purpose, its long sleep. He felt Lyria's presence within the flow, strong and clear, guiding him, shielding him. He felt her emotions too, a complex tapestry of loneliness, duty, curiosity, and something else. Something warm and protective directed at him. The patterns on her form, visible even through his closed eyelids as streaks of radiant light, seemed to dance within the flow, reflecting the dialogue of energy and emotion. The resonance deepened, becoming a symphony of light and sound and feeling. He felt his own chaotic human energy being drawn into the flow, mingling with the ancient, structured energy of the ship and the pure, focused energy of Lyria. It was overwhelming, exhilarating, terrifying. He felt stretched, pulled thin by the intensity of the connection, his human limitations pressed against the vastness of this alien exchange. "You're stretching me too much," he gasped, the words torn from his lungs by the intensity. "Is that normal?" Lyria's voice, clear and resonant within the energy flow, answered, "The merging is. Intense for your form, Kalen, it is safe. Allow yourself to expand, to embrace the flow. Do not fear the stretch." He clung to her voice, letting the energy flow through him. He felt himself dissolving, becoming part of something larger, something ancient and alive. His own consciousness seemed to expand, encompassing the vastness of the chamber, the silent hum of the ship. He felt Lyria's essence brush against his own within the flow, a shimmering, sentient presence that felt both utterly alien and strangely familiar. It wasn't just energy transfer. It was a merging of awareness, a brief, profound intimacy that bypassed language and form. Slowly, gradually, the intensity began to subside. The overwhelming flow lessened, the vibrant energy ebbing back towards the crystal, towards Lyria. He felt himself coalesce, returning to his physical form, his individual consciousness. He opened his eyes. He was still standing before Lyria, bathed in the soft, persistent glow of the central crystal. The golden patterns on her body had softened, returning to a gentle pulse. The scent was still strong, the hum still present, but the overwhelming intensity was gone. He felt different, lighter, more aware. The lingering ache in his side was completely gone, not just healed, but forgotten. He felt a strange connection to the ship now, a faint echo of its hum within him. And the connection to Lyria was stronger, palpable, vibrating in the air between them. "It is done," Lyria said softly, her voice returning to its layered resonance. The silver patterns reappeared on her face, settling into that shape that resembled a gentle smile. "The energy transfer is complete. The balance is restored." He felt drained but also strangely energized. What just happened?" "We connected," she explained patiently, her multifaceted eyes holding his gaze. "Your essence flowed into the ship's somatic field, contributing to its equilibrium. In exchange, the ship recognized your need, and mine. Lyria turned and drifted towards a point on the curving wall of the chamber near the crystal structure. As she approached, the wall shimmered and a small alcove opened. Within the alcove, resting on a soft, glowing cushion of energy, was a power conduit junction. It looked similar to the one he needed, but instead of dull metal, it shimmered with the same soft, internal light as the ship's walls. It felt alive. "The junction," she said, gesturing towards it, "a gift from the vessel and a symbol of the connection." Kalen drifted closer, looking at the shimmering junction. It wasn't scrap, it was sacred. He felt a pang of guilt for ever wanting to just strip it from the ship. I don't know what to say." "Say nothing," Lyria replied. "Accept the gift. The ship is generous to those who resonate with it truly." She paused, her gaze lingering on him. The gold patterns on her form pulsed slow and steady. "And I am grateful. Your energy is vibrant, your willingness to connect, unexpected." He reached out hesitantly and lifted the junction from its cushion. It was warm to the touch, vibrating faintly in his hand with that same resonant hum he felt from Lyria. It felt lighter than it should have, yet substantial. This was more than just a replacement part. It was a piece of this ancient, living ship, a piece of their connection. "Thank you, Lyria," he said, looking at her, "and thank the ship." The silver patterns on her face deepened, and he was certain it was a smile this time. "You are welcome, Kalen. The connection. It is not easily broken." He looked from the junction back to her, feeling the weight of that statement. The connection. It wasn't just about the ship or the energy transfer. It was about them. The impossible bond that had formed between a lonely human scavenger and an alien guardian made of light and sound. He still needed to install the junction, still needed to leave this place. But leaving felt different now. It felt like he wasn't just leaving a derelict ship, he was leaving her. He wanted to stay. He wanted to ask her everything. About her species, her culture, her solitude here, the principles she followed. But he could feel the energy from the connection beginning to fade, a natural transition back to individual existence. The time for questions wasn't now. He carefully secured the junction, placing it in a padded bag he carried. I should go," he said, the words feeling inadequate. "Install this." "Go," Lyria agreed softly. The gold patterns began to recede, leaving only the deep indigo base and the slow, steady pulse of jade. The scent around her softened, losing its intoxicating edge, becoming merely pleasant. The hum quieted, returning to a faint presence. "The path is open." He drifted back towards the entrance of the chamber, the shimmering junction secure in his bag. At the threshold he paused, turning back to look at her one last time. Lyria stood before the central crystal, a silhouette of indigo against its soft glow. The gold patterns were gone, replaced by the watchful jade. She was the guardian again, but he knew deeply and intuitively that the connection remained. "I'll be back," he promised, the words spoken softly into the vast chamber. Lyria didn't reply verbally, but the jade patterns on her form rippled, a complex, fleeting design of silver briefly appearing near her heart before vanishing. It felt like an acknowledgement, an acceptance, a promise in return. He left the chamber, navigating his way back through the silent, faintly glowing corridors. The path was open. The ship's walls seemed less hostile, the hum a friendly murmur. He reached the airlock, cycled through, and stepped back into his scout ship. He placed the shimmering junction carefully on his console. It pulsed faintly. This wasn't just a part. It was a symbol of a link formed between two disparate beings, facilitated by a sleeping godship. Installing the junction was straightforward but different. As he worked, the junction pulsed, humming in sync with a faint resonance he felt deep in his own bones. It wasn't just fitting wires and conduits, it felt like merging two living things. When it was secured and powered on, the ship's diagnostics flared green across the board. More than green, they glowed with a new, vibrant energy. His ship felt healthier, stronger. It felt like it had resonance now. He settled into his pilot's seat, the engine hum now echoing the faint hum he felt within himself. He plotted a course away from the derelict, but not too far. He knew he would return, not for scrap but for connection, for Lyria. He had come seeking parts and found a soul, a connection that transcended his understanding of the universe. He was a scavenger who had found a treasure beyond price, protected by a creature who was herself a treasure. He returned the next cycle, and the next. Each time, Lyria was waiting for him in the corridor. The initial awkwardness of their encounters slowly faded, replaced by a strange familiarity. He learned to read the basic emotional states in her patterns, the steady jade for watchfulness, the slow gold for curiosity, the sharp crimson and emerald for warning, though she rarely used them on him now. He started bringing her things, not valuable tech, but small, interesting objects he found in his travels. A perfectly preserved, intricately carved wooden bird from a forgotten colony world. A strange, smooth stone that changed color in different light spectrums. She accepted them with silent grace, her patterns flowering with soft, complex designs he couldn't fully decipher, but that felt like gratitude and pleasure. They talked, or rather he talked, and she responded in her layered, resonant voice, her patterns mirroring her words, adding layers of meaning he was slowly starting to grasp. He told her about his life, the lonely years scavenging, the emptiness he felt. He was surprised by how much he shared, things he hadn't told another living soul. She listened with an intensity that felt like his words were being woven into the very fabric of her being. She asked questions too, simple, direct questions about human existence, about his feelings, about the world outside the silent vigilance of the sleeping ship. He learned fragmented pieces of her own story. Her solitude was a duty, a lineage stretching back millennia, protecting the ship from forces that sought to exploit its power. She was the current custodian, bound by the principles of resonance, connection, and guardianship. One cycle he found her patterns were agitated, flickering with sharp bursts of cobalt and gray. The air around her felt tight, brittle. The ship's hum was dissonant. "What's wrong?" he asked, drifting towards her cautiously. "Threat signature detected," Lyria replied, her voice tight, the resonance strained. "External approaching the slavers." Kalen's gut clenched. He knew the slavers. Ruthless. They didn't care about sacred ships or ancient principles. They cared about power, tech, and living beings they could break and sell. And the Zethar were highly prized for their unique abilities. "How close?" "Too close," she said, turning her multifaceted gaze towards the nearest viewport, though they were far from it. It felt like she was seeing through the metal hull, through the void itself. "They seek the ship's power, and they know there is a guardian." The crimson flared violently in her patterns. "We need to hide you," Kalen said instinctively. "My ship is small. We can get you out of here, hide in the asteroid field." "No," Lyria interrupted sharply. The patterns solidified into a fierce, unwavering jade underlined with electric blue. "My duty is here. I must defend the vessel." "Defend it with what? You're one against how many?" "The vessel is my defense," she stated. "Its resonance can be weaponized, but it requires a deep connection, a focusing." A focusing, Kalen remembered the energy transfer in the core nexus. "Like what we did." Her patterns softened slightly, a hesitant gold mixing with the jade. "More so, the principle of guardianship requires ultimate resonance, a merging not just of energy but of will, of purpose." He understood. She needed him to connect with the ship's power again, but this time not for healing or exchange but for defense, to become a conduit for destructive force. It felt terrifying. He was a scavenger, not a warrior. He avoided fights, but looking at Lyria, at the unwavering determination in her glowing patterns, at the vulnerability beneath her strength, he knew he couldn't refuse. "Okay," he said, squaring his shoulders in the low G. "Okay. Take me to the core, I'll help." Lyria's patterns flared with brilliant, undeniable gold. The silver returned to her face, a radiant bloom of light that felt like acceptance, relief, and something deeper he still couldn't name. "Kalen," she breathed, the resonance in his name a song of gratitude. "Come, quickly. They are boarding the outer shell." The urgency propelled them through the corridors. The ship's hum was different now, a low, guttural thrum that vibrated with ancient power. They reached the core nexus chamber. The central crystal pulsed with a fierce, aggressive light, no longer soft and inviting but sharp and powerful. The air crackled with raw energy. "The principle of guardianship," Lyria said, drifting towards the crystal. Her own patterns were a swirling vortex of jade, gold, and fierce, protective crimson. "We must become one with the vessel's defensive resonance. Your energy, focused by my will, amplified by the ship's core." She reached out, her multi-jointed hands hovering before the crystal. He saw figures in the corridor outside the chamber, silhouetted against the dim ship lights. Slavers. They were inside. "Now," Lyria urged, turning to him. Her multifaceted eyes held a desperate intensity. "Connect, Kalen, release your fear. Allow the merging, feel the fire." He didn't hesitate this time. He reached out, taking her hands. Her touch was electric, vibrating with immense power. The moment their hands met, the energy surged, stronger than before, faster. It slammed into him, through him, pulling his very essence into the blinding vortex of light and sound and raw, untamed power. He felt himself dissolve again, his human form blurring, his consciousness merging with Lyria's, with the ship's ancient, defensive will. The sensation was different this time. Less about subtle flow, more about directed force. He felt the ship's awareness, its outrage at the intrusion. He felt Lyria's focused intent, her unwavering protection. And he felt his own chaotic energy channeled, amplified, weaponized. He saw, through the ship's senses perhaps, or Lyria's, the slavers advancing through the corridors, their crude energy signatures of violation of the ship's space. With Lyria's will as the guide, the raw power flowed through him, directed outwards, not as beams or blasts, but as pure, resonant force. The ship screamed through them, a silent, deafening wave of energy that tore through the invaders. Kalen felt their energy signatures collapse, their life forces extinguished in an instant. It wasn't violence in the way he understood it, but a fundamental negation, a cancellation of their intrusive energy by the overwhelming, sacred resonance of the ship. The wave of force receded. The intense light subsided, the hum returning to its defensive thrum. Kalen felt himself snap back into his own body, gasping for breath, trembling from the aftershocks of the power. He looked at Lyria. She was still holding his hands, her form shimmering, her patterns slowly returning to the soft, steady gold and jade. She looked exhausted, but there was a deep satisfaction in her multifaceted eyes. "It is done," she whispered, her voice weak but clear. "They are gone." He nodded, unable to speak. The sheer scale of the power, the complete annihilation of the slavers without a single weapon fired, left him speechless. He had been a conduit for a god. "Thank you, Kalen," Lyria said, her grip on his hands tightening slightly. "You faced the fire. You resonated with the principle of guardianship. You saved the vessel." "We saved it," he corrected, his voice regaining some strength. He looked at their joined hands, the physical touch feeling profound after the merging of their very essences. Her multi-jointed fingers felt cool and smooth now, the light within them a soft pulse. She didn't let go of his hands. The soft gold patterns on her form brightened, swirling gently around their joined touch. The air grew warm again, the sweet, intoxicating scent returning. The ship's hum deepened, losing its defensive edge, becoming a low, comforting vibration. He looked into her eyes, the multifaceted depths reflecting the soft glow of the crystal. He saw gratitude there, and relief, and something else, something he had only glimpsed before in the brief moment of their initial connection. Intimacy. Not just the merging of energy, but the vulnerable, raw intimacy of two souls finding each other in the vastness of the universe. "The principles," Lyria said softly, her voice a melodic resonance that seemed to flow between them. "Guardianship leads to connection, and connection requires balance." She paused, her gaze unwavering. The silver patterns blossomed on her face, tracing the contours with exquisite light. "The principle of balance requires reciprocal energy flow in all things." She drifted closer, pulling him gently towards her in the low G. His feet left the ground, and they hovered together before the humming crystal. The light between them intensified. It wasn't just the ship's light, it was their own mingled resonance. Her free hand lifted, drifting towards his face. He held still, mesmerized. Her fingers, cool and smooth, brushed against his cheek, tracing the line of his jaw. The light patterns on her hand flowed onto his skin, leaving behind a trail of shimmering gold that quickly faded. But the sensation lingered, a warm, electric current beneath his skin. "Your energy is potent, Kalen," she whispered, her voice a profound hum that seemed to vibrate in his very core. "Raw, untamed. It resonates deeply with my own, with the vessel." He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. He felt the pull towards her intensify, no longer just a non-physical drag, but something magnetic, irresistible. Her scent filled his senses, dizzying him. The hum was everywhere, in his body, in the air, in the ship. He felt himself opening up to her, not just his energy, but his entire being, the lonely, wounded parts of himself exposed to the radiant truth of her presence. Her other hand released his, rising to cup his cheek. He was held between her two hands, bathed in her light, consumed by her scent and sound. The silver patterns on her face flowed downwards, mingling with the gold that bloomed across her chest. She leaned closer, her head tilting slightly. He could feel the warmth radiating from her, a deep, steady heat that seemed to melt away the years of solitude and cynicism. "The principle of connection," Lyria murmured, her voice a silken resonance against his ear. "It is not just energy, it is intimacy, shared vulnerability, reciprocal resonance of the deepest kind." He understood. He hadn't fully grasped it during the energy transfer. But now here, held within her light and her presence, he understood. The connection they had forged went beyond the utilitarian need for parts or the defense of the ship. It was personal, profound. It was about two beings, different in every conceivable way, finding a resonant frequency between them, a shared space of vulnerability and trust in the heart of an ancient, sleeping god. His hands found her waist, holding onto the strange, smooth texture of her form. It felt like holding a piece of the cosmos, warm and vibrant. The golden patterns beneath his fingers swirled and pulsed at his touch, mirroring the rhythm of his own heart. He leaned in, meeting her gaze, losing himself in the depth of her multifaceted eyes. There was no fear now, only a vast, overwhelming sense of rightness. This impossible connection, this alien intimacy, felt like coming home. Her lips, or what served as them, met his. It wasn't like a human kiss. It was a merging of energies, a profound exchange of sensation. Her skin was smooth and cool, yet radiated intense warmth. The kiss was a symphony of light, scent, and resonance. He felt the golden patterns on her body surge, flowing into him, mingling with his own chaotic human energy. He felt the deep hum of the ship resonate through her, into him, becoming part of their shared experience. The scent intensified to an almost unbearable sweetness, pulling him deeper into the sensation. It was raw, primal, and utterly alien. There was no friction, no awkwardness, only a pure, unadulterated flow of energy and sensation that bypassed his conscious mind and spoke directly to his soul. He felt himself responding instinctively, his own energy pouring out to meet hers, creating a feedback loop of resonant pleasure. The kiss deepened, becoming more intense, more consuming. Lyria's body pressed against his, the soft, glowing contours fitting against his human form in a way that felt impossibly natural. He felt her awareness within his own, a shimmering presence that explored him with a curiosity that was both gentle and intense. He felt his own awareness reaching out, exploring her, marveling at the intricate complexity of her being, the way her emotions translated into light and sound, the sheer, radiant truth of her existence. There were no barriers between them, no secrets. It was a complete, vulnerable merging of being. The kiss ended as slowly as it began, a gradual ebbing of intense energy, a return to individual forms. He opened his eyes. They were still floating in the heart of the core nexus chamber, bathed in the crystal's soft glow. Lyria's hands were still cupping his face, her thumbs tracing the line of his cheekbones. Her patterns were a soft, gentle gold, flowing slowly, peacefully. The silver pattern on her face was radiant, undeniably beautiful. That was, Kalen began, searching for the right word, incredible. Lyria's patterns pulsed with amusement, a soft wave of shimmering silver flowing across her shoulders. Intense, she offered, her voice a low, resonant purr that resonated deep within his chest. Intense doesn't even begin to cover it, he said, a shaky laugh escaping him. He felt a lightness in his chest, a joy he hadn't felt in years. The loneliness that had been his constant companion for so long felt distant, irrelevant. She lowered her hands, letting them rest on his chest. He covered them with his own, holding them there. The connection was still there, a palpable current flowing between them, warm and comforting. The principle of connection, she said softly. It deepens with resonance, with shared vulnerability. Vulnerability, Kalen repeated, looking at her. Yeah, I guess we were pretty vulnerable in there. Lyria's patterns shifted to a pure, radiant gold, flowing outwards from her chest like waves. The air around her filled with the richest, sweetest version of her scent he had smelled yet. The hum deepened to a profound, melodic chord that seemed to fill the entire chamber with love and acceptance. Yes, she said, her voice imbued with an emotion he recognized across species and form. And in that vulnerability, there is safety and belonging. He nodded, pulling her gently closer in the low G. He rested his forehead against hers, feeling the smooth, cool texture of her skin against his. The light patterns from her forehead flowed onto his skin, mingling with the faint gold residue left from her earlier touch. He felt a sense of peace settle over him, deep and true. He was a human scavenger who had found refuge and connection in the heart of a sleeping alien godship, with its radiant, resonant guardian. His life had been about survival, about taking what he needed. Now it was about connection, about giving and receiving, about belonging. He no longer felt lost. He was home. He didn't know what the future held. Could a human and a Zethar truly build a life together? Could he stay here, forever bound to the silent vigilance of the ship? Or would she leave with him, venturing out into the chaotic universe? He didn't have the answers yet, but holding her, feeling the deep, resonant connection between them, he knew they would face it together. Whatever came next, they would face it as one. The principle of connection ensured that. And as the soft, golden light pulsed between them in the heart of the ancient vessel, he knew, with a certainty that resonated to his very soul, that their journey had just begun. The vastness of space outside the ship no longer felt empty or cold. It felt full of potential, of a shared future waiting to be explored, illuminated by the soft, vibrant glow of their impossible, beautiful connection.